Hi all, welcome to TechNish channel. In this video, we are going to discuss about one of the important concepts in Spring Boot, that is interceptor. In previous videos, we have been discussed about how we can create a Spring Boot project using a Spring initializer. We have also discussed about the application.properties file, how we can define the properties in application.properties file. We have uh, discussed about how we can define the application.yaml file for defining the properties. We have discussed about the how we can create the profiles for different environment, and then we have discussed about how we can read those properties file values in our code or in classes to use that for the business logic execution. In this video, we are discussing about the interceptors. For the demonstration of interceptor, I have already been taken that project. I am continuing on that project from the previous video where we have defined the profiles, and so I'm continuing with this project itself. Uh, wa- the first thing is, what is basically an interceptor? So interceptor, as the name suggests, that interceptor which intercept the request or a response. So this interceptor concept is basically useful when we want to perform any operation or any functionality before we are executing the request, and before sending a response of that API or that request to the user, if we want to perform any operation, and also after giving the response to the user, if we want to perform any operation, then we can use that interceptor concept. So in interceptor, let's see how we can define that. For that, I am just trying to create one class. That is, I'm just defining, I'm taking an example of account. So whenever we are using, everybody we are using their saving accounts where they are dealing with the some transactions, either debit or credit transactions. So whenever we are withdrawing money from our accounts, there are certain checks will happening before withdrawing the amount from the account. So those checks is a prerequisites before processing our withdrawal request, and post our withdrawal there are some updation happening on their amount of saving account and other uh, aspects. So those things are called post uh, requirement for that request processing. So for that, I'm just taking an example of account interceptor. I'm taking class name as account interceptor, and this interceptor I'm going to implement this interface handler interceptor, and this interface is basically providing three methods. One is basically the handle, one is basically post handle, and one is, I guess, after completion. yes, this method is not overridden method. Let me see the definition. Yeah, this method is over. Okay, so this is the overall interceptor definitions. So suppose I'm going to writing here some business logic. So I'm just writing one message printing so that we can demonstrate you that before our service call it's passively calling. Pre-checking before any transaction. So this is the method. From here I'm just returning true. This is basically handling the any interceptor chain will be available, then it will call from one interceptor, it will call another interceptor. So we can also define multiple interceptors, and by using these statements we can call one interceptor after another. So here post request process, and here I'm just removing this part and writing post completion all request and response. Okay, so my interceptor class is ready. I just need to annotate with this as component so that it will be loaded in context. And here in this pre-handle method, this basically returning true. If it is not returned true, then our request will be not forwarded to the actual controller where the request need to be processed. So this is required. We will see that demonstration also, how it will behave when we are returning calls. So this is, now we have created one interceptor. Now we have to create one more class, which is basically account interceptor register. This is nothing, basically it will extend one class that is called MVC configurer adapter. The interceptor registration I can do with this method. So here I am going to define one, I'm just auto wiring that interceptor class, that is account interceptor and here I'm writing one method add interceptor adapter. What it will do, it will simply this using registry dot add interceptor, and I'm passing this interceptor. Now this interceptor which we have been created, it need to be registered with web MVC configured adapter so that it will run. And let me see. Oh, now what I will do, just think I have done that. Oh, let's just try to run this code. Okay, now Tomcat is started at 9091. Let's try to hit one service, which is basically one service we have already created, get message. So I'm using similar service. Now it is booted. Okay. Okay, now it is calling. One more thing I have to do here, because this is not, we have not defined as component, so that's why it is not loading, and due to this it was not registered before. I'm just restarting the service again. Let's see what will happen. Okay. Now our service gets started. Try to hit the service again. Okay, now as you can see that here, right, it is first called this one, and then called post request process, and then called post completion of all the requests. For better understanding, what I might try to do, I am just try to print something here so that you will know that when which method will be called post this and when method will called before this. So I'm just doing request processing, and let's try to stop this and run this again. Okay, now if I'm going to hit again, yeah, now we can see that it will first call the pre-checking, which is basically mentioned in interceptor pre method, and then request processing happened, which is basically mentioned in actual API, and then it is called post request process, which is basically mentioned over post handle method, and then it is called after completion part. So this method will be called. So this method will be basically used, pre-check handle method basically used when we want to do any operation before actual request processing. We can write it here, and suppose with the response, if we want to add or do any processing, we can process, we can write to the business logic in post handle method, and after sending the response, if we want to perform any other cleanup operations, that we can do in after completion method. So this way we can use that interceptors, and we can also define a multiple interceptors, and the multiple interception multiple interceptor chains we can call it by calling pre method from here itself. So we can pass the HTTP request object using handler, and it will directly pass it to other interceptor and so on, until and unless it will not return true. Now suppose if we return false from here, we did some validation and validation gets failed, and due to this I am just trying to stop this request to be processed. Okay, so before that it got result this way. Ideally it should returning false. So these three things, this particular request processing should not happen. So let's just do one thing, stop this again and try to run it again. Okay, now I'm try to refresh this service again. See, it is not returning the response. Why? Because it is stopped in a pre-handled method itself. Because it is running false, so request will not proceed thereafter. So there is a no response, no request processing happen, no process completion. So request will be denied from here itself. So this way we can use these methods for doing some business logic processing before request and after request and after completion of the request process. So that's it for this interceptor demonstration. If you like this video, please subscribe my channel, comment out, and also press the bell icon so that the next video notification you will get. And thank you for watching this.